my story. Listening to that story, it seems a world away, but at the same time, it seems like it just happened. It seems like a big accident.
The Jonny Kim documentary you've been waiting for. Accomplished, respected, and ultimately admired, Jonny Kim seems to be the man that can do it all, because by the age of 37, he had achieved enough for 3 full lifetimes. He's an elite, combat-hardened Navy SEAL, a Harvard medical graduate physician, and the first Korean American to become a NASA astronaut. Jonny, as humble as can be, has set the bar of what is possible so high that maybe, just maybe, he can inspire a whole generation to be all they can be. This is his story, real, unfiltered, and uncut, the one and only Jonny Kim. Thanks to X8 Web Design for sponsoring this video. Jonny's life started off on a different type of battlefield. Though he loved his father and doesn't wish to talk ill of him, the truth is, his father had demons that haunted him. In search of a better life, his father and mother immigrated from South Korea to America in the 1980s. They settled in Los Angeles, and like many immigrants, they had the entrepreneurial spirit and did what many Korean families did back then, and opened up a liquor store. In fact, during this time, out of the 723 liquor stores in LA, 625 were owned and operated by Koreans. Jonny's parents came from an impoverished rural area in South Korea. They had limited access to schools, but what they lacked in education, they made up for in hard work. While his father worked around the clock at the business, his mother became a substitute teacher. Together, they had Jonny, who was born on February 5th, 1984, and his younger brother, Jeffrey. But what on the surface appeared to be an average household proved to be deceiving to the unconcerned observer. Jonny's father had developed a severe drinking problem, and this problem always led to violent outbursts of anger and aggression, directed mostly towards his mother. But when his father realized that his mother was unfazed by the emotional and physical abuse, he turned his attention to Jonny because this would hurt her the most. To defuse the situation, Jonny's mother would avoid her husband by leaving for months at a time. She would return home during the day when he was at work to make sure her kids were fed and taken care of. But at night, she would stay at a friend's house to sleep. While all of this was going on, Jonny is still continuing to perform well in school. He even excelled in advanced placement classes. But because he was an extremely shy kid, he struggled to make friends despite playing sports such as water polo and swimming. At the heart of it, he felt alone and was often made fun of for looking white because he wore skater-type clothes. Lunchtime for Jonny was the worst time of the day because he never wanted to be seen not having any friends to eat with. When he turned 16, he started hanging out with 2 boys named Ryan and Keith. Because they were both into martial arts, Jonny often tagged along. Then one day, Keith started talking about becoming a Navy SEAL. He spoke so passionately about how SEALs are supposed to be the quiet professional, a warrior, someone who does hard things that no one else wants to do, and they never seek recognition for their actions. There was something about the creed of the Navy SEAL that really resonated with Jonny. It spoke to him in a way that he never felt before. That day, when he got home, he fired up his dial-up internet and researched everything there was to know. He then learned about a book called The Man with Green Faces, and by the time he finished reading it, his mind had been made up. A decision that he shared with his mother and kept away from his father. His mother pleaded with him to change his mind because he was so smart, but he wanted in so bad that he was willing to forego college and simply enlist. He wanted to be in the trenches and truly start at the bottom of the totem pole. If he had told his father quite literally would have killed him. Because despite all the abuse, he still wanted his son to grow up to become a successful doctor and would not have tolerated any deviation to that plan. But on February 21st, 2002, things came to a head when Jonny's father came home from work a bit early. He had put up with the fact that his wife had been away from home for a while. He always felt that she would come back because, like most abusive relationships, it's hard to break away, and especially if kids are involved. But on this day, something felt different. There was a tension that made Jonny feel like he should stick around. The smell of whiskey coming out of his father's pores gave away the fact that he was intoxicated. His mother was startled as he looked to confront her in the kitchen. Jonny, who was on the couch, sat there and listened. After some time, his father came up to him and told him, "I'm sorry, Jonathan," and pepper sprayed his face. In pain, Jonny could hear his mother yelling for help and saying he has a gun. Jonny, half blind, fought as hard as an 18-year-old kid weighing 140 pounds could, but he lost this fight. His father had managed to grab a dumbbell and smash it against Jonny's head, which is what turned the fight in his father's favor. With his son laying on the ground, he pulled a gun out of his pocket and shot a few rounds in the air. Reaching out to his father, he pleaded that they loved him and that it wasn't too late yet. With his father in the twilight zone and finding a moment of clarity, Jonny's voice cut through the commotion. "Run, just run." His father left through the back door, and that was the last time Jonny saw him. His mother frantically talked to the 911 operator, and when the police and ambulance arrived, Jonny was taken to the hospital. When he returned home later that day, he went to his room, but noticed that the furniture had shifted in a way that allowed access to the attic door. So he quickly made his way to the officers who were still there and told them that he thought his father was still in the house. The cops quickly sectioned off the area and did what they were trained to do. Making their way to Jonny's room, the father refused to surrender, and in a hail of bullets, his father was killed. This event, while tragic, honestly liberated his family. It molded Jonny in ways that would prepare him for the next chapter in his life, becoming a Navy SEAL. His mother never let up on her wishes for him to pursue another path. With the events of 9/11 very much on people's minds, it was almost certain that he would experience war. But being a scared and lost little boy for most of his life, he had this relentless need to become an elite warrior. So she dropped him off at the military entrance processing station in Los Angeles. In 2003, he started basic underwater demolition SEAL training, also known as BUDS. He was 145 pounds soaking wet, and even though he wasn't very strong because he didn't weight train in high school, he was still able to pass all the rigorous tests by relying on being very comfortable in the water, which is the part that tends to send most people home. He was a decent runner, but what helped him above any physical abilities was the fact that he truly wanted to be there. For him, it felt freeing. It was a reset button. He remembers being naive and thinking that the war was going to be over by the time he finished training. And make no mistake about it, Jonny wanted to go to war. He had lots of hate in his heart, but he also wanted to eradicate the most evil of humankind. On a personal level, being a SEAL would also give him the skill set necessary to help people who couldn't help themselves. At BUDS, Jonny's performance was in the middle of the pack, but he managed to pass everything the first time. Upon completing BUDS in 2004, he spoke to a superior and requested permission to speak freely. He wanted to know what was the fastest way to get deployed to the front line. The man told him, "You need to be a corpsman." Jonny didn't know what that entailed, so he asked him, and the man said, "It's hospital stuff." Jonny immediately reacted. He didn't want to do hospital stuff. He wanted to do the cool stuff and fight. But because this was the fastest way to the battlefield, he accepted the assignment and told himself that he would figure it out later. There was also no guarantee that Jonny would pass this school because it's one of the most challenging programs. In 6 months, they train you how to become a combat medic. You learn procedures such as chest tubes, something that normal doctors would spend years learning. The thing about Jonny is that he finds challenging things to be fascinating. He also understood the gravity of that kind of honor. After all, you are being entrusted with the lives of your platoon, and when the decision to accept the challenge was made, he went all in and attended the school at Fort Bragg. After graduating from the program, he was assigned to SEAL Team 3, Charlie Platoon in San Diego, California. But when he arrived, his platoon was already deployed. so the commanding officer assigned him to sniper school, which is absolutely ridiculous because nobody goes to sniper school without 2 or 3 deployments under their belt. At this stage in Jonny's life, he had no experience firing any kind of guns, but with the stroke of a pen, he was blessed to attend not 1, but 2 of the most coveted schools that the Navy has to offer. When the stars align, sometimes things just fall into place. Jonny calls these events accidents because they weren't planned. They simply happened because God or a higher power wanted it to be so. He was acutely aware of his position on the totem pole and took these opportunities with the mentality that he'll do everything to not fail and bring these highly valuable skills to his platoon. When he finally did deploy, he showed bravery, the ability to follow commands while also being a leader. He undertook over 100 combat missions in cities in Iraq, such as Ramadi. But putting aside all the accolades he received for what he did, both what's publicly known and what will never make the light of day, in order to perform at this level, he had to go to a place that you and I can barely begin to understand. What I love about Jonny is that he's humble beyond measure, but he also tells you how it really was. Jonny's mindset in war was to assume that he was going to die. In his mind, he was already dead and that he was there for one reason, to fulfill his role in his platoon. Sometimes as a sniper, sometimes as a medic, but always in the interest of the team above his own. This mindset liberated him and made him incredibly hard to kill. It wasn't easy to get into that frame of mind, but once he got there, it was easy to stay there. Some guys, when they had the opportunity to take a warm shower, they did. But for Jonny, that would have taken him out of the mindset that he needed to stay focused. He admits this probably wasn't healthy, and maybe it won't work for others, but for him, it did. But on August 2nd, 2006, the first casualty of war struck his unit. Ryan Joe and Mark Lee were killed by the actions of that day. As events unfolded and mistakes were made, with Ryan in particular, he swore to himself never to let someone perform a medical procedure that he knew was wrong. To this day, he felt that he let Ryan down, and this event had a lot to do with shaping the next chapter in his life, to fill the void of the brave brothers he lost that day and in the preceding days. He would complete his tour, but then he would enter the fascinating world of medicine. Now, let's take a quick minute here to acknowledge that you don't have to be as brave and as smart as Jonny to realize that if you are going to succeed as a business owner, you need to keep your word, deliver above and beyond your customers' expectations, and continue to improve your product or service. And in today's digital world, you need an online presence that communicates that level of commitment. That's where the sponsor of this video, X8 Web Design, comes in. They offer a free initial consulting session where they go over your brand strategy and website design to help you better connect with your potential and existing clients. They will design beautiful and efficient layouts that give you the image of a big business because they operate with the heart of a small one. Their job is to help you look good online, which will help you attract more clients while making it easier for you to run and update your website. They're passionate to see your small business win, and they aren't scared to say what they believe in either, which is what made them a natural partner of the channel. Their company believes in freedom for their clients, freedom for our teams, and freedom for our country. Whether you own or operate a luxurious country club with a golf course or a personal fitness business or anything in between, if you need an online presence, be sure to book your free consulting session with them and simply let them know we sent you to save 10% on any services you end up using from them. The link is in the video description below. Expand your business with X8 Web Design. Thanks to X8 for sponsoring this video. Jonny initially applied for medical school in between his first and second deployment. Losing Ryan and his other team guys solidified his desire to pursue a career as a doctor, but he needed to sit kneecap to kneecap with his superior officer, Jocko, to share with him his plan. Jocko, coming from a place of love, reacted quite differently than a civilian would have. He said, "I don't know why you want to be a doctor. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Being a team guy is the best thing in the world. Why would you trade in an M16 for a scalpel?" But after letting Jonny have it, he said, "But I will support you." He had his back. With the recommendation letter Jocko wrote, who wouldn't be moved in such a way to accept Jonny? Using the Seaman to Admiral 21 program the Navy offers its sailors, Jonny received the scholarship he needed, and in 2008, while on his second deployment, he found out he had been accepted to San Diego University, and upon completing his final tour at the age of 24, would soon find himself in the classroom. He joined ROTC even though he was a battle-hardened veteran, which helped him to recalibrate to his new circumstances. While in college, he got married and had his first child, but needing roughly $20K more to pay for his growing family, he accepted a job that the university offered him. His job was handing out parking tickets, which is a far cry from the job he had as a highly decorated warrior. But this humbling job was good for him because it was a good reset for his soul. In between his second and third year in college, he applied for medical school. Though he applied to 10 to 15 schools, one acceptance letter rose above them all: Harvard Medical School. However, there was a clerical complication with his eligibility to accept the different scholarships and financial aid needed to support his family if he was to attend this prestigious school. Out of options, he called Jocko to tell him about the situation. Jocko knew the right people who could get this type of stuff sorted out. They weren't going to let one of their own not be able to go to Harvard because of a technicality, and in 2012, he entered the halls of Harvard. Jonny, more motivated than ever to not let his brothers down, crushed his studies. But what's even more spectacular is that he never allowed the workload of Harvard to get in the way of growing his family. He had his second child during medical school, his third during his internship. He says, "I know this might sound crazy, but I believe I'm average. I just learned that becoming a morning person helps me to better optimize my day. I also know how to stick to my goals and rely on deferred gratification to help support me for my goals. Working hard is all I know I can do to make up for any disadvantages I may have." While studying at Harvard Medical School, he had a chance encounter with astronaut and physician Scott Parazynski, and that meeting introduced him to the idea of space exploration. Space was never on the horizon for him, and he asked Scott, besides the obvious, what else does an astronaut do? He learned about the impact an astronaut can have on the next generation, what Apollo did for the morale of the country. Being an astronaut can bring together countries the way politics and alliances never can. After the Apollo astronauts returned from their mission and did their tour around the world, the comments they heard the most superseded any flag, any religion, any race. People saw it as a human accomplishment, an accomplishment of our species. Everything Jonny had gone through, all the trials and tribulations, the pain, the hardship, the joy, all of it made him the man he is today and will continue to forge him into the man he will need to become for the next mission, wherever that takes him. If you made it this far, you certainly liked our video, so don't forget to subscribe and enjoy this next video that I handpicked for you. We are building a library of hits, but this preview is playing below the thumbnail. I'll see you over there. Until then, stay free. The George Soros mini documentary you have been waiting for.
George Soros amassed around $1 billion that day, speculating on security.
George Soros is one of the most controversial figures in the world. The crazy true story of this boy born